So then guys, since you have enjoyed when I have read the first 11 chapters of The Sheep Pig by Dickens Smith in the 5 parts of the story. So it seems like we're going to conclude this story of The Sheep Pig by Dickens Smith. Some of you quite enjoyed it so far. Since I have read a 5th part of this book since Monday, seems like this is going to be the end of this video of reading The Sheep Pig by Dickens Smith on the final 6th part, as we're going to continue from chapter 11 on page 130. So, shall we get started to finish the story? Okay, so you came to what place? Sit back, relax and enjoy. Breakfast ready, she called. But what in the world is doing with that fit pig? Taking him to the pig show on some mate. I thought you was going to drive up and watch the trials today. Anybody'd think you was going to enter in them away. You've got and done up, only he wouldn't be a sheepdog. He'd be a sheep pig, wouldn't it? He. Who ever heard of such a thing? It must be daft, for it's you. That's daft, really. Carrying him about in a poor old Land Rover the size he is now. The bottle thought, I shouldn't wonder. You ain't surely going to drive all that way with him in the back, just so he can watch? No, said Farmer Hogget. Mrs. Hogget considered this answer for a moment, with her mouth open, raising and lowering her eyebrows, shaking her head, and drumming on the windowsill with her fingertips. Then she closed her mouth and the window. After breakfast, she came out to see them off. Fly was sitting in the passenger seat. Babe was comfortable in the thick bed of clean straw in the back, of which he now took up the whole space. Mrs. Hogget walked around the Land Rover, giving out farewell pats. Good boy, she said to Babe, and a good girl to Fly, and to Hogget. Goodbye. And have you got your sandwiches and your thermos of coffee? And your raincoat? Looks as if it might rain. Thought I felt a spot just now, though I suppose it might be different where I'm going, seeing as it's 100 miles away. That reminds me, have you got enough petrol, or if not, enough money to get some? If you haven't, if you do, see what I do mean. Drive carefully, see you later. 2 o'clock, said Hogget, and before his wife had time to say anything, added, on the telly, live, and put the Land Rover into gear and drive away. When Mrs. Hogget switched the television on at 2 o'clock, the first thing in the picture that she noticed was that it was raining hard. She dashed outside to fetch her washing in, so that the sun was shining, remembered it wasn't washing day anyway, and came back to find the cameras showing a layout of a course. First, there was a shot of a huge pillar of stone, a height of a man, standing upright in the ground. Here, said a voice of commentator, it's where each handler will stand, and from here, each dog will stand its out one. He can go left or right to get into position behind his sheep. Today, each dog will have 10 sheep to work. They will be grouped near that distant post called the holding post. All the time the cameras followed his explanations. And then he must fetch his sheep through the fetch gates all the way back to the handler's post and round it. Then the dog drives all sheep the way to the left as we look at it through the drive away gates, turns them right again and straight across the line of his fetch through the cross drive gates and again to the shedding ring, and when he's shed his sheep and collected them again, then finally he must pen them here. Monthly old Finn, said Mrs. Hogget, turning the sound off. Some folk never know how to hold their tongues, keeping on and on about them silly gates. Why don't Dolly show us the picture of the spectators? Might catch the glimpse of Hogget and fly. You never knows. Though not a pig, I hopes. He's surely not daft enough to walk about with a pig. Can't see why he wanted to take an all that way just to lie in the back of a land rover. He had have done better to leave an here and let him sit, watch it on the telly in a comfort which is more than some of us have got time for. I got work to do. And she stomped off into the kitchen, shaking her head madly. On the sign screen, the Sir Handler walked out and took out his possession beside the great Saxon stone, his dog standing by him, tense and eager in the pouring rain. Hundreds of thousands of pairs of eyes watched that first dog, but none more keenly than those of Hogget's flying babe. The car park was a big, sloping field overlooking the course, and the farmer had driven the Land Rover to the topmost corner, well away from the other cars. From inside it, the three so different faces watched intently. Conditions, Hogget could see immediately, were very difficult in addition to the driving rain, which made a going slippery and the steep more obstinate than usual. There was quite a strong wind blowing almost directly from a holding post back towards the handler, and the dog was finding it hard to hear commands. The more anxious the dog was, the more the sheep tried to break from him, and this the angrier he became. It was a vicious circle, and when, at last, the 10 sheep were penned, and Handler pulled the gate shut and cried, "Valdi," no one was surprised that it had scored no more than 70 points out of a possible 100. So it went on. Man after man came to stand beside the gate's Saxon stone. Men from the north and from the west, from Scotland and Wales and Ireland, with dogs and bitches, and large and small, rough coated and smooth, black and white or grey or brown or blue merle. Some fared better than others, of course, were steadier on the sheep or had steadier sheep to deal with. But still, as Farmer Hogget's turn drew near, as luck would have it, he was lost to go. There was no score higher than 85. At home, Mrs. Hogget chanced to turn on the sound of the TV back up in time to hear a commentator confirm this. "One more to go," he said, "and the target to beat is 85 points, set by Mr. Jones from Wales and his dog Bryn. A very creditable title, considering appealing weather conditions have up here today. It's very difficult to see that score being beaten, but here comes a last competitor to try and do that, just that. And suddenly, there appeared on the TV before Mrs. Hogget's astonished eyes the tall, long, striding figure of her husband, walking out towards the great stone with Tubbly old Fly at his heels. "This is Mr. Hogget with the pig," said the commentator. "A bit of a strange name that, but then I must say his dog brother on the fat side." "Hello," he's sending the dog back. "What on earth? Oh, good heavens! Will you look at that?" And as Mrs. Hogget and hundreds of thousands of other viewers looked, they saw Fly going trotting back towards a car park, and from it sent cantering through a never-ending rain. "Come along," lean beautifully clean figure of a large white pig. Straight to the Hogget's side ran Babe, and stood like a statue, his great ears fanned, his little eyes fixed upon the distant sheep. At home, Mrs. Hogget's mouth opened wide, but for once no sound came from it. On the course, there was a moment of stunned silence, and then a great burst of noise. On the TV, the cameras showed every aspect of the amazing scene. The spectators pointing, gapping and grinning of the red-faced judge hastily conferring, Hogget and Babe waiting patiently, and finally a commentator. "This is really quite ridiculous," he said, with a shamed face, smiled, "but in point of fact, there seems to be nothing in the Royal Book that says that only sheepdogs may compete. So it looks as though the judges are bound to allow Mr. Hogget to run this. Sheep pig, I suppose we have to call it. Ha ha ha. One look at it, and the sheep will disappear into the next county without the doubt. Still, we might as well end the day with a good laugh." And indeed, at that moment, a great gulp of laughter arose, as Hogget, receiving a most unwilling nod from the judges, said quietly, "Away to me, pig." And Babe began his outrun to the right. How they roared at the mere sight of him running, though many noticed how fast he went, and at the purely crazily thought of a pig herding sheep, and especially at the way he squealed and squealed at the top of his voice, in a foolish excitement they supposed. But though he was excited, tremendously excited, at the thrill of actually competing in the Grand Chan Sheepdog Trials, Babe was nobody's fool. He was yelling out the password. "Am I bar you? I may bar ram. I may be Wooten, may be lamb, but on a hoof, on a hook. I burnt so stupid as I look," he hollered as he ran. This was a danger point, but he had met his sheep, and again he repeated the magic words, shouting above the noise of wind and rain, his eyes fixed on the 10 sheep by holding post. Their eyes were just as fixed on him, eyes that bulged at the sight of this great strange animal approaching, but they held steady. And now this distant crowd fell suddenly silent as they saw the pig take up the perfect position behind his sheep, and heard the astonished Judges award 10 points for the faultless outrun. Just for luck. In case they hadn't believed their ears, Babe gave the password in one last time. I bet so stupid as I look, he panted, and a very good afternoon to you all. I do apologise for having to ask you to work in this miserable weather. I hope you will forgive me at once. As had hoped, there was a positive babble of voices. Fancy me knowing the password? What lovely manners! Not like they nasty wolves. What do you think? What do you want us to do, young master? Quickly, for what he was conscious that time, he's ticking away. Babe, first asking politely for their attention, outlined the course to them, and I would be really most awfully grateful, he said, if you would all bear these points in mind. Keep tightly together, go at a good, steady pace, not too fast, not too slow, and walk exactly through the middle of each of 3 gates. If had been good enough, a moment I enter the shedding wing. Would the 4 of you who will wearing collars? How nice they look, by the way. Please walk out of it, and then, if you all kindly go straight into the final pen, I should be so much obliged. All this took quite a time, and the crowd and judges and Mrs. Anne Hogget and her husbands of thousands of fellow viewers began to feel that nothing else was going to happen, that the sheep were never going to move, that the whole thing was a stupid farce, a silly joke that had fallen flat. Only Hogget, standing silent in the rain beside a satin stone, had complete confidence in the skills of a sheep pig, and suddenly a miracle began to happen. Marching 2 by 2, as steady as a guardsman on parade, the 10 sheep set off for the fetch gates. Babe a few paces behind them, silent, powerful, confident, straight as a dive they went towards the distant Hogget, straight between the exact centre of the fetch gates, without a moment's hesitations, without deviating an inch from their unswerving course. Hogget said nothing, made no sign, gave no whistle, did not move as a sheep rounded him so closely as almost to brush his boots, and the fetch completed, set off for the drive-away gates. Once again, their pace never changing, looking neither to left or nor to right, keeping so tight a formation that you could have dropped a big tablecloth all over the lot. They passed through precious middle of the drive-away gates and turned as one animal to face the cross-drive gates. It was just the same here. The sheep passed through perfectly and wheeled for the shedding wing, while all the time the judges' scorecards showed maximum points and the crowd watched in a kind of hypnosis hush, whispering to one another for the fear of breaking the spell. He's not put the foot 1 foot wrong. Bang through the middle of every gate, lovely steady pace. And a handler is not said a word, not even moved, just stood there, leaning on his stick. Ah, but he'll have to move now. You're never going to tell me that pig can shed 4 sheep out of a pen on his own. The shedding ring was a circle perhaps 14 yards in diameter, marked out by little heaps of sawdust, and into it the sheep walked, still calm, still connected, and stood waiting. Outside the circle, Babe waited, his eyes on Hogget. The crowd waited, and Mrs. Hogget waited. Hundreds of thousands of viewers waited. Then, just as it seemed nothing more would happen, that the man had somehow lost control of the sheep pig, that the sheep pig had lost interest in his sheep. Farmer Hogget raised his stick and with it gave one sharp tap upon the great sandstone stone. A tap that sounded like a pistol shot in a tense atmosphere. And at this signal, Babe walked gently into the circle and up to his sheep. Bravely done, he said to them quietly. I can't tell you how grateful I am to you all. Now, if all the 4 ladies with collars would kindly walk out of the ring when I gave a grunt, I should be so much obliged. Then, if you would all be good enough to wait until my boss has walked across to the final collecting pen over there and open its gate. All that remains for you to do is to pop in. Would you do that, please? Ah, they said softly, as Babe gave one deep grunt. The 4 collared sheep detached themselves from her fellow companions and calmly, unhurriedly, walked out of the shedding pen. And moving, held by the magic of a moment, the crowd watched with no sound, but a great sigh of excitement, amazement. No one could quite believe his eyes. No one seemed to notice that the wind had dropped and the rain had stopped. No one was surprised when a single shaft of sunshine came suddenly through the hole in the grey clouds and shone full upon the great Sandstone stone. Slowly, with his long strides, Hogget left it and walked to the little enclosure of Hudless, the final test of his sheep shepherding. He opened his gate and stood silent still, while the shed animals walked back into the ring to rejoin the rest. Then he nodded once at Babe, no more, and steadily, smartly, straightly, the 10 sheep, with a sheep pig at their heels, marched into the final pen, and Hogget closed the gate as he dropped a loop of rope over the huddle stake. Everyone could see the judge's marks. The 100 of the 100, the perfect performance never before matched by the man and dog in the whole history of sheep-dog trials, but now the chief by man and pig, and everyone went mad. At home, Mrs. Hogget erupted like a volcano into the great lava flow of words, pouring them out towards the 2 figures held by the camera, as though they were actually inside the box in the corner of a sitting room, cheering them, praising them, congratulating first one and then the other, telling them how proud she was to hurry home, not to be late for supper. It was shepherd's pie. As for the crowd of spectators at the Grand Challenge Sheep-Dog trials, they shouted and yelled and waved their arms and jumped about, while the astonished judges scratched their heads, and amazed competitors shook their in wondering disbelief. Marvellous! Marvellous! Bleated the 10 pen sheep, and from the back of the ancient Land Rover at the top of a car park, a tubby, old black and white collie bitch, her plump tail wagging widely, barked and barked and barked for joy. All of that hubbub of noise and excitement, two figures stood silently side by side. Then Hogget bent and gently scratching Babe between his great ears, uttered those words that every handler always says to his working companion when a job is finally done. Perhaps no one else heard the words, but there was no doubting the truth of them. "That will do," said Farmer Hogget to his sheep pig. "That will do." Now, it is the end of the story of the sheep pig. I hope you enjoyed the story so far about the sheep pig named Babe. He lives in the Hogget farm in the rural England. Found that story very amusing and very entertaining. It brings back a lot of memories since I watched 1995 from adapted film of Babe. Since I remember when I watched Babe, 1995 film. I remember I watched it on VHS since I was a child. It can bring back my childhood memories. It does remind me. I remember I learned about at school. We learned some topics about the sheep pig who lives in the Hogget farm. When he herding the sheep in the Grand Challenge Sheepdog Trials in the end of the story. If you want to comment down below. If you enjoyed this video about reading The Sheep Pig by Dickens Smith. This is very inspiring, very impressive. I hope you like it so far, since I read the first 6 parts of reading this story of The Sheep Pig. Okay, so guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. And let's move on to Halloween in October. I'll see you in October.